Welcome to another week of Gospel Preview. I am Reverend Alex. I am the Director of Formation. And joining me is Susan Hotchkiss. Hi, Susan.
Hello, hello, hello. How is everybody? Good. Good.
And Leta Parks. Hi, Leta.
Hello?
Hi. And Debbie James.
Hi.
Hi. Great. We are all assembled. And our Gospel reading today is the Gospel of Luke, chapter 12, verses 13 to 21. I'm going to share that screen. As I do that, this is my little plug. I said everyone's assembled. And of course, if anyone is listening out there in a recording after the fact, you too are welcome to join us on a Wednesday at noon. The Zoom link is found on the church's calendar. Okay. I'm trying to move things around so I can actually see the screen. Wonderful. And so you should have Luke 12 on the screen in front of you, but some of you might want to open your own Bibles and look at that, and that's great. But Luke 12, verses 13 to 21. I'm going to read it, and I'll ask you to just listen, ponder in your heart, and notice any word or phrase or image that comes up for you. Someone in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me." But Jesus said to him, "Friend, who set me to be a judge or arbiter over you?" And he said to them, "Take care, be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." Then he told them a parable. The land of a rich man produced abundantly, and he thought to himself, "What should I do? For I have no place to store my crops." Then he said, "I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, 'Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool, this very night your life is being demanded of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be?' So it is with those who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich towards God." I'm leaving this up for just a moment or two while I ask what any words or phrases or anything that jumped out at you in our passage.
Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself?
I'm torn between abundance and the phrase, and I will say to my soul.
Yeah,
It's odd.
it is odd.
I'm having a hard time picking out one passage because the whole thing is such a commentary on the opposite. It's the opposite message of what we get today. So it's like I can't separate it out.
Amen, Leta. I'm gonna stop sharing now. But that sounds right. I agree. I even want to just use that as our jumping off point. What do you think about this passage? How are you feeling about it? You're right, Leta. It's the opposite. Do you want to say more about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's a balancing act for us because on the one hand, we have to save up and plan for the future, or so we don't end up without a home, homeless like so many of us have. And but on the other hand, the greed thing in our contemporary culture is just huge. The idea that people should have millions and billions of dollars. I mean, that's just crazy. So I mean, this is absolutely true, but it has to be tempered.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, what is the middle road here? Because you're right. And the lectionary I'll let you know. I don't know I'm curious what next week's reading is. Let me just look at that real quick because wondering how much is the lectionary letting us off. Um, Interesting. Yeah, they really are going to let us off this year. So, what you're saying is so true because the passage what comes right after this that we're going to skip in the lectionary. So next Sunday you don't get it. We jump just past it.
Mhm.
Is the even more challenging. Why do you worry about all the things you need? Don't you know that the birds of the air get they eat and they're fine? Don't you know the flowers of the field are clothed and they're great? So don't you spend one moment worrying about what you will eat or what you'll wear. So you're right, you're right, Lena. Like
Yeah.
where is the middle road in this? Because there is that, like, well, it does seem like my life experience is such that I need to prepare, think about the future,
Mhm.
um, and yet there is a lot of tension here. And then you're right, but it's also very much calling out the part that we actually get, that we'll actually hear on Sunday, the part I read, um, is very much calling out the culture of greed that is not only in our culture, but has been in many cultures throughout
Oh, yeah,
you
history.
know, history.
Yeah.
But this issue with human greed and what do you do about that? Mm.
Well, and it's celebrated. Greed is celebrated in our culture, which is really, I mean, and even in some of the churches, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah,
Prosperity gospel.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes me wonder what is your own experience with greed? Not just Lita, but for the group. Like what is our experience with our own personal greed? You know.
Hmm.
So I was just listening to a podcast just before I logged on about why some of us, I am struggling with things like hospitality.
Mm.
Why do I have a hard time with hospitality? Why do I have a hard time having people over, particularly overnight? Why do I get all schizoid about that? I know I don't have a large place, but I've watched people with teeny tiny, hardly any space at all, and they're fine. They're they're hospitable and they're fine with it and everything. And I'm just not. And I
Mm.
struggle with that. Um, and the
And
podcast
I
was essentially talking about introverts and extroverts and the differences and your energy and blah, 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 blah. But scriptures calls us to something different.
Mhm.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to ask you to break down hospitality for us a little bit more. Like, what part of hospitality is it that you struggle with? Just to help me understand more.
I have a hard time. I mean, I make time like when I go to church to spend it with all these different personalities and to deal
Yeah.
with, and I'm very, very happy dealing with that.
Yeah.
But once I step away,
Uh-huh.
I I I need downtime.
Yeah.
I need downtime and I need alone time. And I was thinking, and I'm single, talking about
Mhm.
this, and I'm an older woman, but I remember when I went through the phase of buying a house, I finally had a chance to buy a house all by myself.
Yeah.
And back during the days when I could actually attract and keep boyfriends, I had a boyfriend who was really wanting, hoping that I would make that step toward a greater commitment and we could have the house together. And no way.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I had to go through all these different changes without him really noticing and without other people noticing that, uh, so that I could have the house to
Yeah.
myself.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And that's probably wrong in with a lot, but I needed the place. I needed to know that I could have a house to myself and I could do whatever I wanted without looking to somebody else.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a part of our generation too. I feel that same way. As a woman, I can do this. I can do this myself. But
Absolutely.
you have the spiritual gift of hospitality when you're at church because look at you behind the welcome table for crying out.
But
Yeah.
I
And
place myself in that
yeah,
mindset. I can do that. And I used to do that when I worked at Sac State.
yes,
I did orientation. And boy, did you have you had to turn it on.
you
But
Yeah.
did.
the
You
second
did.
I walked off that campus, it was like, I don't even look at the phone, and I listen to people talk about how they're addicted to their phone and TikTok and that. There's no way. I mean, no way I can do that. I
Yeah.
just don't want the intrusion.
Yeah. So if I may offer, and then I want to break it open to Susan and Lita too. Um, my opening question, this question that we're responding to right now is what is our experience with greed? And I think what you're naming, Debbie, which is, I'm not going to call it that. I agree with Susan. There's a lot of wonderful things, and as you were sharing, I think it's important to remember how often Jesus wandered off by himself, because there is plenty of times where Jesus wandered off by himself to pray alone. Totally valid. So that needs to be named, and absolutely. But in response to this question, Debbie, you are named. I don't want to discount what you're naming, but in response to this question, what came up for you was, could there be some greed around the time, around my time and my space?
Mm,
I hear you that you do, and I hear Susan, I 100% agree. You have the gift of hospitality. And at what I'm hearing with my priest ears is you accurately saying, Debbie, I mean, in a way, um, Jesus didn't ask us to be good Jesus followers just at church. So, meaning, right? Like, not that, again, Jesus had plenty of time where he walked away by himself and prayed alone. Absolutely. But you're right. If our ministry is only at church, and at church we can turn it on and be this gregarious, giving person, that's not quite what Jesus is after. As I often like to think of it, church is supposed to be a good soul gym. It's supposed to be the place where you can work stuff out, exercise,
mm,
stretch yourself, but none of us live at the gym, right? And
mm,
we don't go to the gym, a lot of us don't go to the gym just to get better at the gym. We go to the gyms that way when we want to go travel, when we want to go walking, when we want to go do other things in our life, our bodies work well, right? And so we don't come to church just so our soul works well at church. We go to church that way our soul works well at church, but also in the rest of our lives. So just to offer that balance of you absolutely have the gift of hospitality, and absolutely it's important to have your own time and space.
yes.
Jesus took plenty of it. And I want to honor that in response to this question, you had some like, well, I maybe don't have a lot of greed about my stuff, but I do have some greed around my time and my energy and how I spend it. And that's okay to name. I can relate to some of that. I can relate to some of that. Taking the attention off of Debbie though. Susan or Lita or myself, what is our experience with greed?
Um, I can relate to what Debbie's saying regarding time. I've never been greedy with my stuff or
Yeah.
selfish about it. I'm happy to
Yeah.
share my stuff, but
Yeah.
or give it away.
Yeah.
But time, I struggled with
Mm,
Yeah.
for years. I was really selfish with my time, and then recognizing that, I started kind of going overboard with volunteering till I
Mm,
got to the point where I was
right.
just over volunteering. I did that for a
Yeah.
long time too. And then I
Yeah.
realized that. And so now I've been pulling back, and I struggle with the guilt of I'm not doing enough. I'm not
Right.
doing enough.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I mean my balancing act or balancing
Yeah.
exercise has been with my giving of my time.
Yeah.
yeah, I'd have to say the same thing that when I first came to Trinity, I was so happy to be in the community, to be welcome, to have that I would just do volunteer for everything. And you just, and I caution people when
Yeah.
they first come, not to do that,
Yeah.
that but it's a good way to find what your call is, which I did, which was
Mhm.
formation and still is, and now pastoral
Mhm.
care. Because sometimes things are just not for you.
Yeah.
If you don't get something out of a ministry, then that's not the ministry you should be doing. And how fortunate we have that wonderful group that comes on Wednesday and Friday morning. And thank God we have people like Shireen that has the
I
immigrant
see.
stuff going on there. So anyway,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I can relate to some of this. I so it's interesting. If I divulge a little bit about myself, I grew up in a household with a lot of abundance. There was a lot of abundance in my household growing up. Um, and not hoarding, but pack rat. And family that uh when yeah, I think it's fine to say all this. Um, my mom's life growing up, there was not a lot of financial uh abundance. There was a lot of scarcity, a lot of financial scarcity in my mom's growing up years. And so she held on to things. You never know when you might need that thing again.
Mhm,
We
mhm.
never needed that thing again,
Right.
but you never know, right? So not hoarding, but pack rat, right? So I definitely grew up with an abundance of things, you know. And so I noticed my own reticence with acquiring stuff because it reminds me too much of the house I grew up in. I want to have minimum stuff. I like my stark living room that you walk into and it's very bare, and I like there are bookcases, but like everything's on the bookcase, right? Everything is tucked away in a place and it's nice. So I can relate to what you're saying. Um, I also know that having grown up in an environment of abundance, how do I say this? I relate to the man in the story in the Bible
Mm.
when he speaks to his soul, which I agree, Susan, how funny it makes me think of when I was in high school, I had a math teacher who would say, I say to myself, self, and he would do that all the time. It was silly. Anyways, so it makes me think of that every time I read this passage, but this math
That's
teacher
great.
I had. But
Yeah.
I can relate to him of when he says to his soul, you have plenty of stuff, drink, be merry, relax. Um, where I have been calibrated based on my childhood that like I can relax if I have plenty of stuff. So while I don't collect a lot, right? Like I like having the starkness. Um, it is true that if uh um that when there are financial limitations, when the number in the bank account goes below whatever arbitrary level I have set in my brain, you
Mhm.
better believe I lose
Mm.
my shit. I'm sorry, I'm probably
Yep.
not supposed to curse on this. But I get very my anxiety goes through the roof. I get really topsy-turvy.
Right.
And so I can relate to the man while I am with you all of you. I don't collect a lot of stuff, right? I like to keep things pretty bare because of that childhood. Um, I can relate to his, okay, I've got enough, whatever that magical enough is, and now I can rest.
Mm.
And I
Yeah. Yeah.
think because I'm trying to get to that middle way that Leta's asking for, and I agree that ultimately there's a middle way. I wonder if part of what this passage and what comes after it, which I know we're not reading today, but you all know it, the birds of the air, the flowers of the field, that part. Um, I wonder if it's trying to get at what's enough and how much do you want or should your sense of okayness be linked to that enoughness,
Yeah.
right? And could
Yes.
I is there a space I can inhabit? And I don't know if there is. That's my little reactive self. Um, is there a space I can inhabit where while I still need to plan ahead and still need to take care of myself, but when the bank account number dips below whatever arbitrary number I've set, and I'll clue you in, that arbitrary number is higher than zero, right? It's not zero,
It's
it's
good.
some other number.
Well, then you apply for credit.
Of course, but do I not lose my sense of okayness?
Yeah.
Right? How can I stay grounded and I'm
Yeah.
okay even when the number goes below whatever I think the number should never go below?
Right.
You
So I
know,
wonder about that.
there is an
Wonder about
issue though.
Yeah,
Who's, you have to worry about that because you have your whole life ahead of you.
sure. Well, maybe. According to this passage, I might die tonight.
Yeah, I'm very unlikely. Who's going to do the preaching on Sunday anyway?
Hey, I gotta cross the street later today. Who knows what's gonna happen? All right, but what are you gonna say, Debbie? I didn't mean to. Yeah. But
Who's going to get all your? Now, here's my worry.
yeah,
Who's going to get all this stuff?
yeah.
Yeah.
And who
There-
wants all this stuff? I know
Nobody
Debbie,
wants
you
it.
don't have any children, but Leta, I don't know. I have nieces and nephews and grandkids and stuff. It's like they don't want
They don't want it.
it.
I was so thrilled to be able to give away the set of china that I got from my mother to a niece by marriage to a relative. I mean, it was like
Yeah, they don't want that stuff.
I was
Like,
ecstatic that she wanted it. I've been trying to get rid of
we
stuff.
wanted our parents, we wanted our parents' stuff. And it was my mother went around her house putting my sister's name on something and my name on something because she says, you'll just let your sister take it, but I want you to.
I got this thing from my mother. My mother wanted to get rid of everything before she died, and bless her, she did. I mean, I had very little to do when she died. She even donated her body to science, so I didn't even have to do that. And I loved that. I mean, that was wonderful. And I want to do the same thing, like just get rid of everything. And it's kind of the opposite of what you're taught in this passage in a way. I mean, anybody can have it. I don't really care. I'm not, saying, so-and-so has to have this. Whoever wants it can have it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I worry about it just being there, like,
Yeah.
junk, leaving behind junk.
I tend to think that the key to this passage, though, is anyone who does all of these things, worries about all these things, worries about the money, worries about all their stuff, but is not rich toward God, is not rich toward God. And I say that because of the conversation I had before I came to this meeting. I mean, it was a really good conversation, but it kind of started going down the tubes because the new person that I met with Shirley went into all the things that are wrong with the Catholic Church. And isn't that unfair? I mean, she wanted us to go, that is so not fair. And I don't care. I'm not Catholic, so what do I care? But and you can't say to a Catholic, if you don't like it, get out, because like they think that they don't feel they can do that. So instead of focusing on God and the richness with God, it all became about, isn't it unfair with that the Catholic Church does this, that, and the other? I don't know. I don't care. Hi.
Here she is.
What does this have to do with all of it? Yeah.
No, it's okay. I'm juggling two things, which is Debbie had a rich share that I want to respond to. I also want to greet Eileen and welcome you to the space. Eileen, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you.
I'm sure I will reread it in a moment to bring you fully up to speed, but in case until that moment, you can know that the gospel passage is Luke chapter 12, verses 13 to 21. Maybe I can even put that in the chat for you. Luke chapter, what did I say? Chapter 12?
Chapter 12, 13 to 21.
21. Great. just so you can look up and start coming up to speed where we're at.
If I can just make a comment, Alex,
Yeah.
one thing that strikes me is all of us here, not you, but those of the rest of us here, are older women who
Mhm.
have a pretty rich spiritual life, I think,
Yeah.
and we're not in a phase in our lives of acquiring, of acquisition.
Yeah.
Right.
We're in another phase of getting rid of.
Yeah.
And so it's harder, I think, in some ways for us to relate to some of what's in this passage than it might be for younger people. And I think that this is, it really speaks, I think, to, not that it doesn't speak to us in some ways, of course it does, but it speaks to people who are ignoring their spiritual life and acquiring, there's a hole. When you don't have a good spiritual life or a spiritual life, you have a hole in you and you try to fill it up with stuff, or you try to fill it up with substances, alcohol or
Mhm.
drugs or
Yeah.
whatever, or gambling or whatever it is you're trying to fill it up with. And when you do develop a rich spiritual life, these things are not as important. And also at our age,
Mhm.
I just wanted to make that comment.
But
I think that's
I
great.
want to disagree a little.
Mhm.
Every day we have to renew our spiritual focus.
That's
And
true.
when we forget, we tend to overdose on other things, be it alcohol, the news, our worries, or something
Yeah.
else. So even if you're spiritually developed, you have the capacity to fall into any of that kind of.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I don't mean that we made it. I don't mean that at all.
Oh,
That
no.
we're in a different phase of our life. That's all.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And that's what bothers me so much about, oh, my soul, talking to his soul. What does his soul have to do with having stuff? I
Mm.
just, I don't know. Oh, my
You
heart,
want to
oh,
say
my
more about
brain.
that?
I don't know. I just think that, I don't know what is him praying to his soul. Um, when you think of, I love that hymn, it is well with my soul,
Mhm.
and I,
Hey, B,
Julian, all will be well, all matter of things will be well. It doesn't mean it's going to be hunky dory. That's what this guy is looking for. Now, I
Yeah.
don't know if he's the same person that doesn't want to share. He's not. He's in a parable, but Jesus is talking to the person that wants to make sure he gets his cut,
Right.
his inheritance, which I think in those days was a pretty important, thing. Look, we talk about the
Good
prodigal
deal.
son. The fact that he took that money was almost like saying his dad was already dead.
Right.
So
yeah,
he was shunned so much. So anyway, it just seemed like an odd choice. I don't know if he would say, "Oh, my heart." I could see that if he was a
Right.
person that, just loved a lot of stuff, but just odd to use that word.
So I,
Well, I think there's a lot of oh yeah, Eileen, jump in, but I
um,
have a couple of things.
yeah, so I'm looking at Bible Gateway under the new
Yeah.
Bible Gateway under New Revised Standard Version updated, and it doesn't have a comment about my soul. Could you
Well,
just
that doesn't
tell
say.
me the sentence that
Oh.
it is 19.
Verse
oh,
19.
What is
no,
verse
I mean,
on
what
yours?
version of
Oh,
Oh, what version are you reading from,
yeah,
Alex?
Right. I mean, I'll share my screen again. It's I don't know what the version is. It's some
It's
version of
probably
the
New
Revised
Revised Standard.
Standard,
I
yeah.
bet.
but
yeah.
it's probably
Yeah, it
not the
might
most
have a different
updated.
word, and that would be very interesting to hear what
I
word.
agree. I'm very
using.
curious what word they
Yeah,
chose
it is
to knock out.
It
NRSV.
is New Revised Standard. Mine is New International Version, and it says, and I say to myself, that's what
Ah,
Alex said. And I say to myself, self,
that's a better word.
and I say to myself.
Oh,
What does yours say,
okay.
Eileen?
Well, I moved over. Let's see. I moved to the New Revised Standard Version updated edition, and in there it does have 19. And I will say to my soul, soul, you have ample
Okay.
goods.
That
Relax,
says
eat, drink, and be merry. Um,
What the previous version you were looking at, do you remember what it said? Instead of
it
soul?
it didn't. Let's see,
Hmm.
just a second. Let me go back if I can.
Because it is always interesting why, how translators translate the words.
So
So
that's
all
the
of this
one
is
that
in
you pick.
Greek.
Yeah. If it fits into your thinking, that's the one. This is what
Oh
I.
yes, okay. So this is just the New International Version.
Oh, sure.
Okay,
Okay, and it says, "And I will say to myself, you have
Yeah.
plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry." Which, I kind of do, It's like
I see.
I have I'm reasonably comfortable. We think that we have, enough money to where we won't be a problem for our children. Um, and I and I look at that and I say yes, and I tithe and I support these organizations and I do these other things. So, and then God's saying, well, you fool, this night, your life will be demanded. And so, and then I go to, well, that's why I have a will, and that's why I have, a trust. And I think all of you know that one of my grandsons is disabled, and so the majority of what we have left over is going to go towards his care. His life will be shorter. So then, after that, any leftover will go to the other, our other inheritors. But so that's kind of interesting to me
Yeah.
and my age. And I
yeah,
could see how it could be very different for, for anyone who's of an age where they have to start being concerned about their future.
Yeah, that's true. I will say that the word myself makes much more sense than using the word soul. Yeah.
And yet,
And
and
yeah.
yet, I wonder if soul might be more of what Jesus was getting at,
Very well be. Yeah.
because the parable, the short parable, parable let, it's not quite a full parable, the little parable let, is full of irony, or like there may be, you might have touched on something that was really right, Susan, which is,
Yeah.
what the hell does possessions have anything to do with my soul? And Jesus might be saying, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I had the character say, I said to my soul, soul, enjoy all this. And Jesus intended that sort of disconnect, that like, yeah, this guy's really
Yeah.
not getting it. Going back to Debbie's
Good
point
call.
about the whole end of it, the last thing that said is the um so it is with those who store up treasures for themselves but are not rich towards God,
Yeah.
right? Is that this man in the story really has confused what will actually feed his soul.
Yeah.
What will actually bring his soul joy? He thinks it's all the stuff.
Right.
And so
that's
and
good.
so yes,
Yeah. I like
the other translation to self may make the passage make a little more sense to us, but it may actually then lose
Mhm.
the like some of the bite of the, or some of the irony, or some of the humor. It might have also just meant to be
Yes. Yeah.
some of the
Well,
humor that Jesus intended with this sort of the way he, because you're right, it's kind of weird. Yeah.
And
There's often
also,
when there's something weird, there's
yeah.
a reason.
There's a
There's
reason.
something
Exactly.
going on there. It's not just weird for no
Exactly.
reason. Yeah. Eileen.
so, so what it puts in mind is
Yeah.
the rich man who wanted to join Jesus, and Jesus
Yeah.
is like, go home, sell everything, and come with me. And if you don't, you're not worth being, I can't remember the exact words. You're not.
Well, I want to caution you. I don't think Jesus said those extra things you're saying. He
Okay.
he did say,
Thing.
so in that story, I just wanted, because I think we take that story and we hear things in it that are not in it.
Okay.
The man asked, "What must I do to inherit eternal life? What must I do to inherit eternal life?" Jesus' first response is to say, "You know the Torah, you know the Ten Commandments, do the Ten Commandments." And he lists them, lists a couple of them or something. And the man says, "Yes, yes, yes, I've done all those things. I do all those things, Jesus. I'm a really good person. What else, though? It's not enough. What else must I do?"
Mhm.
And then Jesus looks at him with great compassion and says, "Sell all your stuff and come follow me." And then the man says, I can't do that, and walks away. So I just want to caution when I heard you're right, but I don't think Jesus said, well, you're not worthy to follow me
Yeah.
then.
I think I'm missing. I think
Sure.
I'm, as you're talking, I'm pretty sure I'm mixing a couple of events.
Oh, and there might be,
You know.
sure.
Mixing your
'cause
metaphors. No,
it's always a better story,
That's right.
So
That's right.
thank you
I
for
don't think
No,
Jesus
I
would
didn't mean to
Thank you for
undermine your
clarifying that.
comment. Is there something, it does remind us of there's lots of passages where Jesus is talking to rich people and he tells them to
Yeah.
I didn't mean to undermine I would like to
Mhm.
hear if you have more. I just wanted to caution.
I don't
Naming
think
Jesus
Jesus
is often a
wants.
very unhelpful Jesus, right?
Yeah, well, I
Jesus
don't
who
think
wags his
he
finger and
wants
says
me to
people are
sell
unworthy.
everything in Oak Park and go
Right.
follow him.
Yeah.
Well, that's the tension in
Yes.
in our modern society.
Yes.
Because, and not that I think beggars then had anything better than beggars do now, but people knew that there were going to be people walking up to them and asking for money and food. And some people then, and I'm just surmising, I'm making this up, I guess,
That's okay.
that people might understand that, eventually we have to help a beggar and they're going to come up and, that kind of a thing, versus if we live in a tent on a corner and ask for food now, it's just we're bad people because we haven't gotten a job, or we must be a drug addict or something. So it's a it's a really confounding thing for me, because I do think, like, yes, I want to go to Portugal, to see my daughter get married,
Yeah.
and it's disposable income,
Yes.
and it's a big piece of disposable income.
Sure.
And could it be used someplace else better?
Yes. And I want to what that makes me think of is Judas with the woman who has the big jar of nard.
Right.
And Judas says, well, don't you know all this money could have been used for something way better? And Jesus says, leave her alone. What she's done is beautiful and wonderful, and she doesn't need to be chastised. So, that as you tell that story, I hear that story too
Thank
of
you.
Jesus. Yeah, Jesus saying, leave her alone. What she's done is beautiful.
He was
Yeah.
being rich toward God.
She certainly was being rich towards God, right? I mean, that's a key part of the end of this passage, right? Jesus is not saying, yes and no. How do I want to say this? Yeah, I think it's important to keep in mind that final sentence. So it is with those who are, how does it say it, Debbie? Rich towards themselves, who
It's
store
this
up treasures
will
for
be with
themselves.
anyone who stores up things for himself, but is not rich toward God.
Right. There's some caution there too, but I think it's important to keep the meaning too simple of a reading to just be like, well, as long as I keep God first, I can be as rich as I want. I don't think Jesus was quite saying that either. But
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
it is important to keep that the tension of that final sentence in mind. There is some, Jesus is not saying it's bad to have disposable income necessarily. It's not bad to grow crops, have a barn, do all these things. I think I hear the age and I hear the stage of life. I think that's valid. Um, I want to offer, and I think you all know this, that not everyone in your stage of life has come to some of these conclusions that you all have come to. So,
Mhm.
we can flag, you're a subset of the stage
Yeah.
of life you're in. Um, but I also want to name, um, how do I say this? The concern that was being brought up earlier on this call is not the same concern as this man. There was a concern brought up earlier on this call of like around the whose stuff will it be? And many of you were like, yeah, I have all this stuff and my kids don't even want it. Whose stuff is it going to be? And maybe that's some of the greed and the tension that we have to talk about.
Yeah.
Because I think in the parable, the tension isn't that there's no one who wants this guy's stuff. I think in the parable, there are plenty of people and who want this guy's stuff, remembering that the stuff being talked about in this parable is food.
Yeah.
right? It's food. It's grain, it's barns, it's not rugs and paintings and things. It's a you don't store those things in a barn. It's grain and it's crops and it's stuff you'd put in a barn. So it's
Tool.
food. And I think the answer is that there's lots of people who want that stuff. There's plenty of people who want food.
Mhm.
The issue is he didn't want to give it to them.
Mm.
Right. And so I just wanted to name, I don't know how to, I wonder if part of the point of the passage, or not the point, I hate that because there's so many, there's never one point. But
No.
um I wonder if some of what's going on in the passage is a question about whose stuff is it to begin with?
Yeah.
Right? Whose stuff is it? Is it, uh because the whole thing is about him storing stuff in the passage. The guy, in the little parabolette, is storing up stuff for himself. It's all about himself. It's myself. It's that we don't hear anything about a wife. We don't hear anything about kids. We don't hear anything about community networks. Um, he's saying to his soul or his self be merry and joy, not, he said to his family, he said to his kids, right? It's very self-focused. This is my stuff and I'm storing it up for me so I can feel secure, eons from now or whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And then it's this question of whose stuff is it going to be,
Mm.
is a slightly different question about like, um, it's like on the tip of my tongue, and I see you, Leta, that you have a comment, and I want to hear it. It's like, but it's like this. Um, I don't know. I'm losing it. Leta, what do you got?
Well, I'm thinking that you pointed out that we're talking about food and grain and things
Yeah,
like that, and those are perishable things. And there's a big difference, I think, between if you have a whole lot of food, let's say you have a whole lot of food in your house,
yeah,
why would you want to keep a whole lot of food in your house unless you have a really big family and they're all going to eat,
right.
But I
Yeah,
mean, if you by yourself or you have one or two people or
yeah,
whatever, there's no point to that. I mean, give
right,
that away because it's going to die, it's going to perish anyway,
right.
and I think that part of it's important.
I
Does that,
agree. I think it's one of the other weird tensions, or like, what did I call it earlier? Weird, like, contradictions or ironies in the story.
does
Ironies,
it
yeah.
have anything
Because,
to do with the tariffs that we're having?
right. But I think you're right, Lita. I think the parable, that's why I don't really want to change the word from soul to self, because I think the parable is rife with a bunch of like ironic, contradictory things. Okay, so this guy's got too much grain, and his solution to that, and you're right, grain eventually goes bad, bacteria grows on it, pests get into it, grain doesn't last forever. In that time and place, there's not refrigeration like we have it today. Yeah, there was salt, but how much salt can really keep away the bugs? Um, and so you're right, this stuff will eventually decay and go away, but his solution is let me just make a bigger barn,
Mm.
Yeah.
right? Um, and so perhaps, you know, another idea being explored in the passage is what is the stuff, and I don't mean that as physical stuff. Earlier we were talking about time. I think time can sometimes fall into this category. What are the things that are ultimately passing away right from under our fingers, and yet we spend so much time building bigger barns to try to maintain it,
Yeah.
right? Like I've got to hoard it and hold on to it. It's going to decay. I mean, that's sort of the point of also the guy dying. Like ultimately, Jesus sort of does it instead of going where you go, Lita. Like the parable could have been, he built the bigger barn, and you know what? In 3 weeks, a bug got in there and ate
Well,
all the things.
Yeah.
it makes me think of something I read this morning in the New York Times about these two women that went to the hospital. I think one of them may have died because they were taking this thing called peptides. I don't know what those are, but to make them stop aging because
Ah,
they wanted to hold on to their youth. And
yeah,
you see this so a lot with, especially, movie stars and stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of plastic surgery, dangerous things, because they don't want to grow old,
Yeah.
holding on to youth.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And right. So the parable could have been this man had a bunch of abundance of crops. It was too much for his barn, so he built a bigger barn and he said, be merry and enjoy. But 2 weeks later, a bug got in and ate, all of it, and it all became infested with bacteria. Could have been that. But instead, Jesus kind of did, instead of that would be an A to B. I'd call that A to B. Jesus
Right.
went from A to C.
Yes.
Instead of reminding us that all the stuff is going away, Jesus said, yeah, that, and you're going away. Exactly what you're saying, Leta. Ultimately, at an even more fundamental level, you're going away. I'm going away. I don't mean to always say it as a you out there to the world. I'm going away. I will pass. And to Debbie's point, well, you're young. You're not going to make it. The point of the passage is this man, there's nothing indicating this man was old in the passage.
Right.
Right? He's not an old man. It's not indicating that the man died of old age. It just says that night he died. Right? Who knows? I have an aneurysm. I have no clue about in my leg, and tonight while I sleep, it travels up into my brain.
Bad.
It'd be terrible. Um, or like I made a joke earlier, I have to cross the street later today. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, that 29-year-old woman that just died in Yosemite, she got hit by a branch from a tree.
Yeah,
You don't know. You don't know.
the children,
Yeah, I mean,
sadly, the children who died with the flash flooding in Texas.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so the point being that I too may die anytime, may pass away, may go away anytime. And so there is this, and I wondered, and so I think we're exploring another element of the text is challenging us or asking us questions about this relationship between impermanence, trying to hold on to what is fading anyways, and whose stuff is it anyways, including whose time is it anyways, whose life is it anyways, is it how do we meaning how do we think about our time in our life? Eileen wasn't here. She may need to hear this too. Let's not forget, Jesus plenty of times went off and prayed by himself.
Mhm.
I named that a lot earlier on this call. So,
It's true.
we do need some of our own time. We need some of our own autonomy. We need some of our own space.
Mhm.
None of that is denied. And, when I think about my life and all those dimensions, the physical stuff, but also the time and the energy and whatever, is it my life? Is it a gift I've received from God that I want to share with others? What is my and I'm not asking you to answer this out loud, but I think it is asking this interior question of, in the end, whose is it? In primarily, how do you see it? Do you see it as this is mine? It's all mine, or do I see it as this is a gift I've received and it's a gift I hand on to others? Or do I see it as, we could go totally the opposite unhealthy direction, which is it's everyone else's, which is also not the right answer, right? To say, well, it's everyone, they all get
Aren't you
it.
so lucky? Aren't you so lucky to
Right.
be around?
So I don't mean to say it's unhealthy only in one direction. Lita
Yeah.
reminded us at the beginning of this call, there's always a healthy middle road. And there is a healthy middle road in this passage too,
Yeah.
even if we're struggling to find it. No, it takes work. None of this is apparent, and there are reasons for that. Um, hmm. Wow, it's 12:55. Lively conversation. Um, does anyone have closing thoughts they want to share? Does anyone have things that are in their heart, mind that I didn't give space for a moment ago as I needed to do that soapboxing?
Well, in another area, not with this specific piece of scripture, but I'm just very grateful for all of you. I'm very grateful for us being able to have these conversations and to talk about it and struggle. And even if someone says, not not quite the right word, we just keep working together. And I'm very grateful that you're
Yes,
all
indeed.
here.
Mm-hmm.
Even you, Alex.
Oh, that's so nice. Yeah, I'm happy to be. Okay, yeah. Um, hmm. Any other final thoughts? Trying to think how to wrap this up. Hmm.
Don't worry about tariffs. Don't.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
tariffs. Don't worry about tariffs. Oh, geez. Oh, no, I think that's something
Whose
to worry about.
product is it anyway?
Yeah, right, right. Um, I think though the truth in what you're saying, Debbie, which is really right, and it's really hard,
Yep.
and I think Leta was trying to get us to go here, and maybe I stopped it, but um, I really had us focus on our own personal relationship with this passage and greed and possessions and stuff. Leta is right, Debbie is right. There are much bigger cultural phenomenons going on that Jesus is also speaking towards. So this is not just a passage for ourselves. There's also a passage for our culture.
Yeah.
I think the reason I had us focus on ourselves is it can often be easy with passages like this, especially in America, to say, well, this doesn't apply to me. This is for all those other people out there. All those other people need to hear this passage. I'm good. Right. And so I wanted to caution against some of that. And so that's
Yeah.
probably why I made us do what I made us do. Uh, but you're right, Debbie and Lita. That, like ultimately, there are much bigger forces at work in the world that are very much focused on greed and that sort of accumulating of stuff, money, resources as a way to uh, have security, um, and
Empower.
power,
Yeah.
power.
And
It's one of
success.
those passages that points out how hard it is to be a Christian because
Yes.
we're walking a different path.
Yes.
It is a different path.
It is.
Two competing paths here, and we are steeped in Americana.
Yeah.
I mean, that's our first religion, most of us,
Mhm.
and we have to figure out from time to time how to sidestep it, I think.
Yeah. And we do that both in our personal life, and I think that's what we were reflecting a lot on today. And but you're also right. And we've got to, it's just trickier, and I don't have all the answers for sure. I don't have all the answers about the personal life either, but I definitely don't have all the answers about our bigger cultural life of like, what do we do with a wider culture that is going very much in the opposite direction? And I think a passage like this, you all were saying just a moment ago, we walk a different path. Often what that looked like was that meant that you're a prophet, like that's a prophet's work is to walk a different path. Is there is where this passage reminds us of as Christians, you know, we have a role to play, a responsibility to play of being prophets in a culture that is walking a very different path that wants to accumulate more and more and more. And so, how do we articulate a message to the world, to the culture
Yeah.
of the opposite? Call that out and direct the opposite way. So there's some of that in this passage.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if we're going to Portugal,
Even if
that
we're going to
is
Portugal.
different, and that
Uh,
reason is, yeah.
Yeah.
is different.
Yeah, at least you're not renting out Portugal.
No.
Goodness. Right. You're
Or
not renting the entire
yeah.
country for your own personal wedding.
Canopy
Right.
Awards or
Right.
something. Yeah.
There's a difference
Going-
there.
going
There's a
for
difference
a
in
long
traveling to the
weekend.
country and renting it out. I guess it wasn't a country, but you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah, there is a difference there. And right, but my point is that there is something in this passage about our wider culture and being prophets in it,
Yeah.
and being able to name that for others. Um, but good. All right. Well, it's 1 o'clock.
All
I'm
right.
gonna end our recording. Anyone is welcome to stay on for a minute afterwards if you like, but otherwise, I will see you all next week. Thank
All
you for
right.
being here.
Have a good week.
Thank
I think
you.
I'll just
Thank
stay
you.
on for a second, Alex.